Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS Hockey Report. I'm your host, Brock Seguin. With me, as always, we got Zach Laing. Excuse me. Sorry for no show the last couple days. Wednesday, I had a meeting that went crazy long that pushed the charts back, and then Thursday had some doctor's appointments, and I didn't get the charts out till 5 o'clock, so there's no way we were going to be able to do a show. So sorry about that. Hopefully, you guys were able to cash. If again, just another reason to join the DFO DFS Discord because you could still have got access to the charts those days. The charts were still live, just not the show. So join the Discord. You can get the charts in there. Glad you guys are here today. Looks like no one did videos yesterday for the huge slate. Interesting. But yeah, we got an awful 3-game slate on our hands today, Zach. So we return to a lot of fun. I guess the only good news is that the slate starts at 8 p.m. So you got some extra time to build some lineups tonight. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. Yeah, this is a disgusting slate here tonight, and for some reason, I'm going like as hard as I've gone in a couple of weeks in terms of what I'm putting down on the streets tonight. So should be a fun one. Hopefully, we can find some nice edges. I think we can do that.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about it because we didn't do a Wednesday show, but on Tuesday we had one of our funniest moments ever between Zach and I. I built an enormous amount of lineups on Tuesday, and I sent Zach exactly one lineup. It ended up being my best lineup, and he almost won the $4.20 max with it. He ended up getting past the very last second and finished second, but it was just like we have a screenshot of it. It's like an all-time moment of me just sending him one lineup. He's like, I like that. Played it, and it almost worked for both of us. So hilarious stuff. Zach, I think your shirt is so fitting for us missing 2 shows and then coming back today. It was also hilarious. We are so bad.
I actually planned this one out. I was looking for and I was like, yeah, we're so back. Let's go.
All right, we've got a 3-game slate. It's not fun, but we'll do our best here. Eric Comrie projected to get the start for the Winnipeg Jets is likely to be Darcy Kemper for the LA Kings. Spencer Knight goes for the Chicago Blackhawks. Logan Thompson goes for the Washington Capitals. Gravel Melka likely to get start for the Utah Mammoth. Joel Hofer back between the pipes for the St. Louis Blues. If you missed it, Connor Bedard is back for the Chicago Blackhawks. The problem is we have no idea what the lines are going to look like. So I went back to as close as I could get to what they had in their last game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tyler Bertuzzi is up on this top line with Bedard and Burakovsky in some capacity, maybe Green and Moore with Teravainen. Makhayev's also a game time decision. Foligno's a game time decision. So they've got a lot of question marks here. And we just don't know exactly what the lineup is going to look like. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through tonight's slate. Let's get started with that game as the Chicago Blackhawks host the Washington Capitals. They are plus 112 home underdogs here. Offense has obviously been a bit of a nightmare. Defense as well for both teams, really. The Washington Capitals really slipping as of late. I will say that the Chicago Blackhawks, after Bedard got hurt, lost 5 consecutive games. Since then, they've won 5 of 7. So they fared pretty well without him and playing some of their best hockey of the season right now. So when we take a look at the matchups in this one, it's actually really good on the Chicago side of things. Now, this is going to change. Right before we went live, we found out that Alexei Protas is he was a game time decision all day, but he was activated from IR not that long ago, which signals that he's going to be back. So while we try to talk about this game, I am going to try to pull up Monday's charts because we did have the line stats at the very least with Protas in, so we can at least get a slightly better idea of what it might look like. But without Protas, the second line has really, really bad underlying metrics. I imagine that they're going to be, quite a bit better with Protas specifically. I mean, at both ends of the ice, really. So I would upgrade Washington 2 a little bit, which they still already grade out pretty well, but I imagine it's going to be Serdif and Protas in some capacity, whether it's Leonard or McMichael as the third member of that line. That is kind of unclear. On Monday, I had projected that it was going to be McMichael, Serdif, Protas. We'll see if that ends up being the case. It could certainly be Leonard, Serdif, Protas as well. So a lot of uncertainty. It's already a shitty slate, Zach, and then we just added this uncertainty. Here's what I had on Monday for Washington's numbers. So pretty bad still. Let me see. We got awful offensive metrics and pretty good defensive metrics. So this was Washington 2. McMichael, Serdif, Protas was that line that I had together. So that's what I project to see tonight. The offensive metrics still bad. Obviously, this was the night that Serdif scored his hat trick and just went nuclear. But even without Protas in these last couple games, like the underlying metrics are bad. So I have a hard time buying into that ridiculously good performance that we saw from them, that night. and just kind of chalking it up, as a one-off there. So to me, Zach, I've got a lot more interest in Washington. One, they grade out the best. I think they're a little bit more consistent, without Protas and without Wilson in the lineup. Ovillier has seen a real big bump in usage. He's up to $3,900. But like if he's going to play 18, 19, 20 minutes tonight, I think that line's a little bit more viable tonight. And the matchup for them certainly not great. They're going to see a big mixture here of the second line. This is actually probably going to end up being the third line. I didn't change it, but they are going to see a lot of this Dickinson line. Dickinson was Chicago 2 earlier. The math is against the Dickinson line. But Zach, what are your thoughts here on the Chicago-Washington game? For me, it feels like mostly the two teams' top lines, which it feels like a bit of a cop-out. Obviously Bertuzzi will be in the mix for me, depending on which lines he's on. Green's really starting to come on out here at 3,300. Bedard right back in the lineup, up to 36% ownership. So these two top lines feel really solid to me, but a lot of uncertainty in this game. And obviously, we just don't know what the rest of this lineup's going to look like.
Yeah, and I think that makes it a little bit difficult to break down here. I think either way, I don't really have a ton of interest in this second line for the Washington Capitals. You saw we've seen the defensive metrics for the Jason Dickinson line. It's really good. They're going to see a lot of that Dickinson line here tonight, whether, Dickinson's line is Chicago 2 or 3. So I think it's going to be a bit of tough sledding here for this second line. And I do agree with you, man. It feels like a bit of a top liner bust game here for me. Building a lot of lineups, I'm still going to have some exposure to Washington too. I just don't think I'm going to get up to this like 17% ownership that we're seeing. I'm a little more comfortable around that 10% mark, coming in a little lower owned on this spot here. Chicago ones certainly have interest there. I'd love for Tyler Bertuzzi to be bumped up to that top line. I think that would be a great spot there for him. I mean, Bertuzzi has been just rock solid as of late here. Tons of offense from his game. He's scoring a lot. He's obviously, had a fairly high shooting percentage, shooting like 24% on the season. That has dipped a little bit to like 21.5% over his last 20 games played here, but good shot volume from him as of late as well. He's definitely scoring goals. Him and Bedard have looked really, really solid together in their minutes this season. So I do agree with you. It feels kind of top line or bust for me here in this game tonight. The Washington Capitals power play looks like it's in a good spot. That being said, the Washington Capitals power play is dog shit. 15.3% power play. I mean, come on, this is crazy. This is a power play with Alex Ovechkin. I get that he's a little bit older now and maybe not scoring as much as he did in his prime of his career, but I've been really surprised to see how inefficient this Capitals power play has been. And truth be told, it is a bit of a tough spot for them, even though they have the number one ranked power play matchup on this slate tonight. It's a pretty brutal night for power plays all around, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a Capitals power play that obviously still drawing a lot of quality looks, right? They grade out 8th best despite scoring just 15% of the time. So, you got to feel pretty good about a unit that's got the likes of Ovechkin and Jacob Chikrin, John Carlson. They've got some good shooters on that unit, and they still are generating looks, which is why they still grade out with the number one power play advantage. And I think you can buy into it a little bit, right? They're okay at 5v5. I did just fix the matchups while you were chatting there. Doesn't change a whole heck of a lot here. Still bad matchups for the Washington top line. And then, both teams' top lines, it's kind of a cop-out here. Maybe my tune changes a little bit depending on where Protoss slots in, but I think that this game, by and large, not really the one that I've got the most interest in tonight. So why don't we get to Winnipeg and LA?
Yeah, let's move it along.
Take it away.
Interesting game here tonight between the Winnipeg Jets hosting the Los Angeles Kings. Kings coming in as the minus 124 favorites on the money line. Pretty easy to see why. The Winnipeg Jets, not a very good hockey team. Lost their 11th straight game last night to my Edmonton Oilers. Had a 3-1 lead and blew it in the second half of the game. Things are very, very rough out there in Winnipeg right now. So I think this is a really kind of an interesting game for a few reasons. Number one is Winnipeg 1 grading out as the number one line to target in the charts. I kind of really like Winnipeg 1 here tonight. This feels like a nice spot for them. Obviously, we've seen this line with Gabe Vilardi have some success in the past. The offensive metrics are still fairly solid for them with Alex Iafallo up there. And with him at $3,200, also getting minutes on that top power play unit, I think he's a guy who really helps bring that salary down. Just $18,000 to full stack this line. I kind of like the look of that here tonight. They're going to see 33% of their ice time going up against the Kings top line. As you can see, absolutely brutal defensive metrics, somehow giving up very few goals against. And they're also going to see 42% of their ice time going up against the Kings third line, who, ironically enough, tons of goals against, but the other metrics are fairly solid defensively. This feels like a bit of a nice spot here for this Winnipeg Jets top line. A really interesting statistic about the Kings this season from my friend Jason Greger at OilersNation.com. The LA Kings are playing in the first half of a back-to-back here tonight. They're taking on the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow night in Edmonton. On the season, the Kings are 0-3-3 in the first half of a back-to-back and 4-1-1 in the second half of a back-to-back. So if that trend stays true tonight, it looks like it could be a fairly solid night here for the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously it's pretty tough to get to some of these other spots for this Jets team, right? And the ownership reflects it. 4.5% for this second line, 1.3%. For this third line as well. I think they got some pieces that are okay. I've talked about Morgan Barron a little bit as a value play. He looks to be another solid value option here tonight at just $2,800. Gabe Vilardi, I don't mind him as an option either. On that second line there, I'll probably sprinkle in a little bit of ownership on this second and third line here for the Jets, but it's going to be through mini stacks or one-offs for sure. As for the LA Kings, I still don't know what to do with them. This third line, though, I will say it feels like they've kind of turned it on offensively as of late. I played them the other night. They had a really solid night. They grade out well, 5th best in the charts overall tonight. They are seeing some ownership as the highest owned line here for the Kings tonight, 13.5%. Super cheap to stack at $12,900. And the offensive metrics are really solid for them. Still need a little bit more goal scoring from them, but it feels like that's something that can certainly come their way as well here. They're going to see 46% of their ice time going up against the Jets' top line, 26% going up against the second line of the Winnipeg Jets. So seems like an interesting spot. Those are probably my two favorite plays here from this game, Winnipeg 1 and LA 3. How are you kind of feeling about this game?
Yeah, I think maybe you misspoke a little bit. I follow is on PP2, not PP1. But Jonathan Taves was bumped up to the top power play unit yesterday. And, we talk about and joke about how this man just has absolutely zero floor. He did have, 5 shot attempts yesterday? 4 shot attempts, 3 shots on goal. He had 4 scoring chances, 2 high danger looks. He played 17 minutes last night. I mean, as a $2,700 center, I think Taves is okay. I obviously don't feel super good about it just because he, that could have just been a one-off where he's like, hey, I might just shoot tonight. But the extra ice time, the bump the top power play unit is beneficial. I think you can feel pretty decent about a Taves Vilardi mini stack potentially. Seeing that top power play unit exposure together, they have the second best power play advantage of the night. Power play has been really bad as of late, but we know it's a power play that can get hot. Kings PK has struggled, so I do think that Winnipeg 2 might be a little bit more viable tonight than normal. I think that is a little bit of a small slate effect more than anything. I don't think I'd be considering them on a 10-game slate. Like I didn't even look their way once last night. But on a smaller slate, I do think that you want to try to find some of these sneakier edges, and I think that line, especially with Taves only getting 3%, is okay. I don't mind getting there, but yeah, Winnipeg 1, obviously the preferred target from the Jets side of things, and then LA 3, man. I talked about them as a sneaky option on Monday or Tuesday. I can't recall which day it was. I think it was Monday. They looked good. Wednesday comes around, everybody's injured, and they were like as chalky as could be. And they played awesome. They were phenomenal. Fiala played like 22 minutes. Kopitar, Moore, Perry, they're all expected to be out again. And I think this line is going to play a healthy amount of minutes. I really like LA3 again tonight. You take a look at the usage for forwards tonight. Quentin Byfield on the second line grades out with the most minutes tonight at just 4,800. You can see why he's drawing so much ownership. Super cheap center. Not a lot of great centers on the slate tonight. $4,800, he's great value. But then you got Fiala over 21 minutes. You got Kempe over 20 minutes. I mean, these guys are going to play a ton, and they're really not all that expensive. Laferriere even coming in around 19 minutes. He had a nice night the other night too. So I do like the Kings a lot tonight just because Eric Comrie gets the start and not Connor Hellebuck. And as you saw at the start, man, this is still a Jets team that, defends okay, but I feel like they've been pretty gettable as of late. And Eric Comrie specifically, he's given up 4 goals at minimum of 4 goals in 4 consecutive starts. For the most part this season, he's just been downright dreadful, but a .784 save percentage in his last 4 is just ridiculously bad. So I do think that I have a hard time figuring out which Kings to play usually. try not narrow down which one to stack. But with the injuries, I think you just kind of play all of the really good players because they're going to see so much ice time. So if I had to full stack the line, it's certainly LA3 at 12,900. Turcotte's really coming on offensively since the Deneau trade at 3K. Kuzmenko's been solid at 34. It's a great value line tonight. But I don't mind the idea of a Byfield Fogle mini. Mostly Byfield one-offs, though. And then I do like the LaFerriere Kempe mini quite a bit tonight. You can get some Taylor Ward in the mix if you want to. I also really like Brandt Clark on the blue line tonight. He grades out quite well. Third best value defenseman tonight for the Kings. So I actually do have, even Joel Edmondson, he grades out really well, and he looked phenomenal. Like, he scored a goal that got called back and then later scored another goal the other night. Like, a 2-goal game from Joel Edmondson would have been crazy. And crazier things have happened. I mean, Josh Manson had, 13 points last night? So crazier things have happened for sure. I don't mind Joel Edmondson tonight either. So yeah, this game honestly is pretty interesting. I like the King side a little bit more just because Comrie's getting the start, at least expected to. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up here on the Jets and the Kings?
No, let's move it on to this one here.
Let's get to Utah and St. Louis. The final game of the night. 3.4 implied total is the highest of the night for the Utah Mammoth. They're the largest favorites of the night at -177. They are in a pretty good spot, right? Like, the Blues just are not a very good hockey team. They got absolutely just demolished by the Chicago Blackhawks without Connor Bedard the other night. And you would have thought, oh my God, there's wholesale changes coming tonight. This is actually the first time they haven't shuffled their lineup, which is bizarre. They shuffle it after wins, but after they get blown out, they keep it the same. Make it make sense. This top line for the Blues, though, I can see why they're keeping them together, at least from a defensive standpoint. The underlying metrics are really good. This is a bit of a mixed-up sample. The sample of them just together is a little too small for me to use, but the defensive metrics are fantastic. So I do think it's a bit of, has the potential to be a bit of a low-scoring affair here, but I really like what I've seen from Utah, one with Lawson Krause in that top line, him being just $3,800, even Schmaltz just $5,800. It's so easy to get to Utah one tonight, and I think they're in a really good spot. When you took a look at raw projections, too, they graded out as the best line overall by a wide margin. They also graded as the best value line. So, they're going to be crazy popular tonight. And, but I think, there's a good reason for that. The matchup, again, doesn't look amazing on paper going up against that Thomas line, but still 43.5 in the matchup score is okay. The underlying metrics have been really, really good. The second line, not really scoring as much as you'd like to see, but they still got Dylan Gunther. They still got JJ Peterka. I can still get there. Their price tags are pretty affordable. But man, this Utah 3 line, obviously Jack McBain and Michael Carcone together is just a perfect combination because it doesn't seem to matter whether it's Daniil Boot or Lawson Krause on that line. They continue to just post ridiculous metrics. The problem is they don't have a ton of quality finishers on the line. Boot's okay. Carcone's okay. They still just aren't scoring, and it doesn't meet their underlying metrics, but they're going to continue to grade out really well because of those metrics. And tonight they look like they're in a really interesting spot because they draw the best matchup overall for Utah. They're going to see a stronger mixture of the second and third lines, which are much worse defensively for the Blues. So I think Utah 3 is in a really interesting value spot tonight. They grade out 8th best for us tonight. They're seeing just they're $8,200. They're seeing very limited ownership compared to some of the top dogs for Utah. So this is a really nice leverage spot tonight if you want to get to some Utah 3. It also allows you to get really creative with the rest of your lineup, right? Like, you can play the big dogs from that Winnipeg LA game. You can play Ovechkin, you can play Bedard, you can get very creative and very expensive with the rest of your build with Utah 3. So very interested there. On the blue side, man, I don't know. There is just not a whole lot to like. This offense is just downright terrible. The Utah Mammoth are very good defensively. The power play sucks for the Blues. I have a lot of interest in Karel Vejmelka as my goalie tonight at $8,200. So I'm probably not going to play much St. Louis at all. To be honest, I will get obviously a small amount of exposure to them, but not much. You sort by value here. There is not a single blue on the screen except for Otto Stenberg down here at 28th best value forward of the night. They just don't grade out well at all. Seemingly nobody is doing anything. The one kind of positive that you could say about the Blues here is that they're just very cheap. But it doesn't really feel like a night where you need to get crazy value. There's a lot of value. So you don't need to go to the Blues just to force value. I think that there's much better value options in the slate than St. Louis. Do you ever different opinions here on the Blues, or I'm assuming you don't because you never play them anyway?
No, I never play him anyway, and I'm not going to get there a whole lot tonight. I mean, I think I might sprinkle in a little bit of ownership here, and there in terms of what this St. Louis team has. But boy, it feels pretty gross to play them, right? And admittedly, I don't even feel the greatest about playing this Utah side of things either. I think in terms of my interest in games tonight, this is probably the game I have the least interest in. I'm probably going to be a little bit under the field on Utah 1 tonight, probably meet that Utah 2 ownership. The third line, you know me, I love me some Utah 3, so I'll be over the field on them for sure, as one-off and mini stack options there. But this game as a whole just feels really gross. And it doesn't help that both of them, Elka and Hofer, have been playing really, really well here as of late. The one interesting caveat is both of their numbers in terms of going up against the opponent are terrible. Joel Hofer, 3 games played against the Mammoth in his career, 1 win, which was a shutout, a 285 goals against average, and an 889 save percentage. That is all the while having a shutout in one of those 3 games. Karel Vejmelka, meanwhile, 9 games played against the Blues in his career, 3 wins, a shutout, 336 goals against average, and an 890 save percentage. I feel better about Utah taking advantage of Hofer than I do St. Louis taking advantage of Vejmelka in this spot tonight. So for me, I'm probably going to be, getting a little bit of ownership on these netminders as well here in this game. But yeah, I just don't feel great about St. Louis at all, man. Like I can't even really find a way to justify legitimate interest. I mean, I think if there was an argument to be made, it's the fact that some of these guys have had success against the Mammoth so far. Buchnevich, 2 goals, 7 points in 6 games played. Jordan Kyrou, 5 points in 6 games played. Robert Thomas, 5 assists in 5 games played. But even if they score, they combine for a goal or 2 within these guys. I just don't know if there's a route to them necessarily being optimal. They don't even grade out well from a value standpoint. So watch St. Louis go ahead and have the biggest offensive night in the season, because I'm probably going to be fading them a pretty heavy amount here tonight.
Yeah, so a couple more tidbits on this game. So the Blues' last 7 games, they've averaged just 2.3 goals per game. 2.3 goals for, 3.7 goals against. So they haven't been great. Obviously, some blow-up games there by Binnington. Then the other notes, these two teams have met twice this year. So the first meeting was in, what am I looking at here? October 23rd. It was a 7-4 Utah win. Very early in the season, Logan Cooley had a hat trick. Dylan Gunther, 3 assists. Clayton Keller, 2 goals and an assist. Nick Schmaltz, a goal and 2 assists. Peterka, 3 assists. The top dogs of Utah just absolutely destroyed the Blues. Then they meet in late November. It was a 1-0 win for the Blues. This is the Hofer shutout you just spoke of. The shots, 19 shots on goal for the Blues, 18 shots on goal for Utah. So which one of those 2 games kind of perks up here? I think it's a cop-out here. Probably somewhere in the middle, but I do think that it's probably more of the first game where Utah carried the play a little bit more. They're just playing so much better than St. Louis. But you got to keep in mind that, man, that 19 to 18 shot on goal game, it is super possible between these 2 teams. It's just 2 teams that, play low event hockey. It's by far the lowest pace game of the night. On a 3-game slate, man, if this is a 1-0 game with 37 combined shots, your lineups with these 2 teams are going to be absolutely sunk. So it is an interesting game because it's so much ownership coming in on Utah. And you make a good point about Hofer. Me, I love me some Joel Hofer. I think he's so much better than Jordan Binnington right now. And I don't know why they keep rotating the 2. And I wish they would just go to Hofer consistently. He is the highest on going in the slate, but you can see why. This game, if it does remain low scoring, he's just $7,200. Super, super interesting target. Very interesting chalk buster as well. Let's get to some defensemen unless you have some final thoughts here.
No, let's move it along.
Okay, so Sean Durzi missed the morning skate. Unclear if he's going to play. Last I checked, still unclear. He's $4,500. If he does play, Grayson is the best value defenseman. Nate Schmidt will get a nice bump if Durzi doesn't play. He'll move up to the second power play unit. Should see some additional minutes. So Nate Schmidt's a name to keep an eye on tonight if Durzi doesn't play. Sergachev grades out really well, $5,600. Already mentioned Brant Clark. Louis Crevier, man, always grades out well for us in the charts. Never sees any ownership. He absolutely nuked the other night. He was in a lot of my lineups. I felt great about it. Joel Edmondson, I already mentioned. Neil Pionk is super interesting tonight. He was last night too. He moved up to the top pair with Josh Morrissey. You can see some extra minutes in that role. He becomes super interesting. It's always difficult to play full Winnipeg 1 and then pair Morrissey with them and keep it cheap because they pair up together a lot at 5v5 as well. Pionk's a really nice pivot, value pivot especially paired up with Winnipeg 1. Artem Levshunov's been great too. $3,500. He grades out super well tonight as well. Anybody else that you really like that on the blue line tonight?
Nobody else like really jumps out to me. I mean, it's worth mentioning Jacob Chikrin looks like a great play tonight at $7,300. Also going to be the highest owned defenseman on the entire slate here. But there's some other guys that are a little bit cheaper. Like you mentioned, Dursey. I love him tonight. Sergachev, Brant Clark, Martin Ferivari has been an absolute dog lately, just doing of shit out there on the ice. Lots of block volume from him as of late here. Morrissey, Carlson. I kind of like some of these pay up defensemen here tonight because I kind of think I'm going to be going for some of these cheaper kind of forward builds here. So I'm comfortable paying up on the blue line here tonight. That being said, a good way to get different is these cheaper guys like Crevier, you mentioned, Edmondson, you mentioned, Pionk, Levshunov. These guys are all beyond Levshunov, that is, pretty low owned here tonight. So I think there's some really interesting options on this blue line tonight, and some ways you can kind of get weird with these builds.
Yeah, we already talked with the goalies a little bit. We'll get back to him. I don't mind Thompson tonight. I think he's an okay pay-up option, but I'm probably more comfortable with Vejmelka. I think Vejmelka is my favorite play of the night. So for me, it's probably going to be a lot of Vejmelka. It's probably going to be a lot of Comrie. It's going to be a lot of Thompson and Joel Hofer. Those are going to be the four that I'm focused on. Knight feels okay, but I think I'd rather just pay down for Hofer. But Knight's okay. I think the one goal I'm not going to get to a lot tonight is Comrie. It'll be a pretty even sprinkle of the rest. But Vejmelka is my favorite. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I mean, I really like Logan Thompson here tonight. Really solid numbers against the Blackhawks in his career. It's worth mentioning Darcy Kemper been great against the Jets too. 9 wins in 14 games with a shutout, 243 goals against average, 923 save percentage. So for me, it's probably Thompson, Kemper, Vejmelka. I can see that's where a lot of my ownership is probably going to be going tonight.
Let's get to tonight's hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in tonight's hat trick pick challenge, all you got to do is drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up some DFO swag. And if somebody scores a hat trick that nobody picked, we'll raffle it off to anybody who submitted a pick. Zach, take it away. Who do you want tonight?
Alex Ovechkin.
Okay. I'm going to go with Kevin Fiala. He was all around it the other night. Looked really good. I'm going to go Kevin Fiala. That's going to do it for another week here at the DFS Hockey Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Apologies for the 2 missed shows. We will be back to more regularly scheduled programming next week. The daily face-up, our head-to-head lineup challenge will return. And yeah, just be a much more normal week for us next week. So thank you guys so much. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button as well so you never miss an episode. Shout out to our friends at RotoGrinders for providing projected ownership for tonight's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. I've actually been using the optimizer over there a ton lately. Treated me very, very nicely. So be sure to check it out. Also, 20% off of Action Network Premium. You can get that by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. If you want to up your betting game, join Action Network Premium. And then as always, the link to the DFO DFS Discord's in there. So again, if you want to get access to these charts, even when we don't do a show, the Discord is the way to do it. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. See you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Cheers.